welcome to Street Scene Power Hour. It is, I think, the 27th episode, so we're getting up there towards 100. Welcome, everyone. We have the infamous host, of course, Larry Ward, and he is live down where?
I'm live at the Packard Museum.
All
Tonight
right.
is called the movie night. And from 6 to 9 p.m., we're going to be showing movies from the old time racing in the 60s and 70s, local racing, like down in East Palestine.
Okay.
It'll be fun.
Yep. And then we have the other infamous host, Rick Guerrera.
From my living room, live from my living room.
I am stuck somewhere else, so I thought I'd try to remote in, and it worked. I can't believe it. Our special guest right now is Mike Marino. He is, as Larry classified him, the Asphalt Angel. Now, I have to ask Mike before Larry gets started. And Asphalt Angel, what does that mean?
That I think Larry nicknamed me that after a motorcycle crash I had that I was really lucky to get away from. So I think it was a bit of recognizing Providence, so to speak.
Well, that thanks, Larry. Yeah, that's something to have him remembered by, right?
Well, he got out from under that pretty good, but I'd like to welcome Michael Marino to the Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour. We're live. I am live out here at the Packard Museum for the movie night. And of course, now through Memorial Day, the motorcycle exhibit will be on display. And of course, for a small amount of money, like $8 or $9, you get in, you can spend a couple hours out here. But tonight is movie night. So we're looking forward to that. One of the reasons why I named Michael Marino and I'd like to welcome Mike to the show is as the Asphalt Angel on the Two Wheel Power Hour motorcycle show, Michael was the guy that was the road race commentator and moto journalist for our motorcycle show when it came to all things on the pavement. And Bob Wenzel handled all things off-road. Michael Marino was his counterpart, handled all things on the asphalt. So I coined that phrase, the Asphalt Angel. And of course, the angel took care of him when that guy rear-ended him. So that was a pretty good thing. But Michael, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your background, because for a young guy, you rose pretty quickly in the moto journalistic world. So let's talk about how I first met you. Do you recall how we first met?
Oh yes, very much so. It was 2009. No, 2009. And I was actually doing a practice run for my first cross country trip. I decided I was going to do the first of 4 days. My plan was in 2010 to ride from Buffalo, New York, where I lived at the time, to Salt Lake City for the World Superbike round. So I did the first run. The first day was going to take me to Indianapolis, and I pull off at this hotel. There's all these motorcycles there, and I'd completely forgotten MotoGP was in town that weekend. And then Larry and Roy were there, along with that whole crew that we hung out with year after year at the hotel there in Greensburg. So so then after that, Larry, we stayed in touch, and I got my start in moto journalism thanks to Larry Ward and the Two Wheel Power Hour.
Wow.
It was so funny because that weekend was special when they brought the MotoGP to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So you had Friday night flat track racing at the Indianapolis Mile, which was thrilling. And all of the guys that were racing on Sunday's GP race showed up. Valentino Rossi, Nicky Hayden. I mean, all of them showed up. And so we had a good time there. And eventually we became so good at that hotel that we got thrown out.
Yes, we did.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
You're doing things right when you get thrown out of the motel.
Yeah. We got thrown out of the hotel, asked not to come back. And then I pitched a bitch. And the good news is I complained so much that every one of us, I think, got our money back. Right, Mike? I think all of us
got my money back.
How
we all got.
Larry, how is that possible? They kick you out because they're mad, and they're like, "Oh, well, we're sorry for making you mad when you got kicked out." How is that possible?
Well, I had a legitimate gripe, and I aired it in a professional manner, and then I also tagged onto it iHeartMedia, and so then he said, "Well, look, how many people?" And I named them. I mean, there was probably 9 or 10 of us, and they refunded our whole week's stay. It was pretty cool.
Oh my God. That's
and
unbelievable.
Then what was even better is that the GP didn't come back the following year.
Yeah.
So I felt like we were vindicated, But so Michael, we had asked Michael, and he's been a great guy for all these years, but very, very knowledgeable. He has a master's degree. We call him the Muppet, Masters of Urban Planning.
What other nicknames do you have?
Well,
Well, I was gonna say
Master of
Larry used to. Oh, go ahead, Larry.
Well, he's got a master's in urban planning, so we call that was MUP, like the Muppets and the Mupp,
The Mupster. I was the
Yeah.
Mupster a little bit.
But Mike probably remembers a few other nicknames. I don't know. I like the Asphalt Angel. That kind of signifies what he did on the motorcycle for us. One of the things I liked about Mike is that he would bring a high level of integrity and journalism to somewhat of a shoddy show at times. Actually, I was very fortunate that the cast, we call them the cast of characters, and Ted Guthrie, Bob Wenzel, longtime co-host Roy Dykeman, and Michael, we rounded out a crew that delivered a solid product each and every week. And that was the good thing about it is Michael is extremely knowledgeable in all facets of road racing. I mean, all facets. And Bob Wenzel on the other hand is a former pro racer, sons of pro, could deliver the off-road world like nobody else could. So we had a lot of credibility, and Roy would do touring and travel, and Larry would just kind of hold it all together. But we got Michael on there, and we asked him to develop a series with MotoGP and some other things. So, Mike, I'll let you talk a little bit about your experience on the motorcycle show.
Mike, hold that thought. We joined in by Fast Freddie. I just want to introduce Fast Freddie. Now say hi, Fast. Make sure the audio works for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey. All right.
Hey,
Fred.
Fred.
That's an okay. Yeah,
Well,
I'm having a little difficult time logging in, but I'm here. I'm ready to rock, and it's good to be with you guys here.
All right, breaking up a little bit, but you know what, Fred, we're going to get to you in a second. We're getting through getting the mic right now. Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt, but keep answering those questions, because we'll get your history and all this down, and then we're getting right to Fred too. So
Okay.
Well, it's good to see that Fred dressed up for this,
Yeah, we've
all right, Mike. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
All right. I was going to say, I think I actually formally joined the Two Wheel Power Hour in 2016. It was I was going to the MotoGP round that year at Circuit of the Americas, and Larry wanted some boots on the ground, and I had helped set up the social media presence for the Two Wheel Power Hour. So Larry kind of as a thank you, let me play moto journalist for a weekend. And that was the first time. And you want to talk about overwhelmed? I mean, you walk into a MotoGP media center that's got probably, a traveling press corps of several hundred. And it just, people whose voices I heard on TV calling, standing right next to me. I was kind of awestruck and kind of starstruck. I've since gotten over that. Now, those things don't faze me anymore. But so that it started there. And then I covered a bunch of Moto America stuff for Larry. And then I'm also an avid road rider. I'm 38 years old. I started riding in 2007, and I have 140,000 miles of road riding.
147. Wow.
Yeah. So it's
heck of a lot.
And climbing. So
the one thing I can tell you about Mike is that he gets a good motorcycle that is equipped to do the job at hand, and his is an FJR, Yamaha FJR. I don't know if it's 12 or 1300.
1300.
But Mike also gets the service manuals and does the work on performing the maintenance himself. And that makes it very reliable, because if you do break down, there's a chance you might have come across something like that, or you're going to be able to fix it with the tools that you have on hand. One of the things that Mike has done, in addition to being a moto journalist for the motorcycle show, is that he's also created a company on his own where he is the voice of one or two of the racing teams. Let's talk about that, Mike.
Yeah, so about 2018, I started my own company, Mourinho Communications, just to kind of capitalize on what I did at the Two Wheel Power Hour, mainly doing PR work for some privateer Moto America teams. I can't remember exactly how many teams I've worked with. It's more than half a dozen. Last year, I had 3 clients, Travis Wyman Racing, who competes on a BMW S1000 RR, the Twins Cup championship winning Robum Engineering Aprilia team. I worked with them for the first time last year. It's always great when one of your clients wins a title. It makes your job kind of easy and kind of hard in another way. And then there was a privateer named Jeremy Cook who I worked with. I've also worked with, I did some work for KTM at one point, kind of behind the scenes for him, and some other teams that the names are slipping me at the moment, but so I've also done some freelance journalism for the likes of Revzilla's Common Tread blog. I've got 3 or 4 stories on there, I believe, mainly about road riding. So,
wow. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, it's Larry.
Yeah. Who? Anyway.
Well, the nice thing about Mike is that he takes not only the journalism part of it serious, but he takes you can see with 147K since 07, that's pretty good mileage. And he takes that pretty serious. And Mike wears all the gear all the time, good safety equipment, very knowledgeable, safe rider, can do a lot of distance in that. But Mike has, one of the things I liked about him is, like he said, he gave us boots on the ground for races that were out in Texas and those things like that. So we could give factual single person reporting of those events and stuff like that. Now, Michael has also transitioned into a long distance rider that's searching for different things. So like a lot of people, it's about the journey, not about the actual destination. But Mike's been able to encapsulate both the journey and the destination. So let's talk about your Johnny Cash tours, Mike.
Yeah, I meant to look at my number of how many stops I've gotten before I got on the show, and I apologize for not doing that. But years ago, I was sitting having lunch with a friend of mine who I was telling him, hey, I've been here, I've been there. He's a former rider, sports car enthusiast, and he was like, man, you've been everywhere. And all of a sudden, it just all came together about I haven't been everywhere, but I'm going to be everywhere. And the idea of riding everywhere that Johnny Cash went in the song, I've been everywhere. So I've kind of restricted it to places in the United States. I haven't found a place called Tocopilla or a few other ones. If anyone knows of a restaurant called that, please let me know. I'd love to go there and get my.
Just make it up, just put a big sign there.
Well, and like, for example, I've some people consider it cheating. Like I went for like the city Toronto is in the song. Well, he probably meant Toronto, Canada, but certain border closures that are in effect right now. I went to Toronto, Ohio. It's a lot closer.
It's a lot closer.
I went to Ottawa, Ohio, instead of going to Ottawa, Canada. But
there's an Ottawa, Ohio. I've heard of Toronto.
You'd be surprised how many. I've gone to Kingston, Ohio. That's south of Columbus. I've gone to Waterton, Ohio. A bunch of other places, but. I want to say it's 34 of the 84 down already. I could be wrong about that. I could be high or low on that, but unfortunately I've gotten rid of all the close ones. So now it's, going to Dodge City and, good news is there's a Pasadena, Maryland. So I can,
good. You didn't have to go to Cali.
But there are some I'm just going to have to do like a 10-day trip out West for several times over. So, it's been fun. It's brought another dimension to road riding that I didn't think was really there. It was always like, I'll just go to the same places. And this has kind of injected a kind of energy into planning my year. Like, ooh, how many of these things can I knock off in a year? So it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Well, the thing that I liked about it is that we would see the blogs and the reporting. And by the way, you can catch the website and the blogs and that on twowheelpowerhour.com. Michael has put together everything. He's a genius when it comes to websites and stuff like that. And we send articles from time to time. And every time we do one of these shows and Greg sends it to me, we send it over and pop it up for extra play on the Two Wheel Power Hour website. So Michael then transitioned out of being on the Two Wheel Power Hour as the Asphalt Angel, which left me kind of in a wonder of what to do. So I tried to fill in a little bit, but following Michael wasn't so good. And he went into the American Motorcyclists Association, which is well over 500,000 strong members that are, and the AMA supports riders' rights, racing, and a bunch of other things. So Mike, tell us a bit about your time at the AMA.
Yeah, so I started at the AMA in February 2018, was there until about July 2020. So about 2.5 years. My title was associate editor, but I was kind of the de facto racing editor. I was also supposed to be the off-road editor, even though I say this with some pride and some remorse. I've never intentionally ridden off-road. But the 90% of what I did was covering racing, and it was a lot of fun. I got to cover like some of the people that are stars today, like, rising stars like Dallas Daniels or Trevor Bruner, people that are coming up through the ranks. Kayla Yakov. I watched her race a bunch of times. The thing I liked most about the experience was I covered pretty much every form of motorcycle competition you can think of, whether it was in person or remote. I covered speedway racing, which is something that has really tickled my fancy, and I really wish we had more of that on the East Coast, because it's so much fun to watch. Observe everything from observed trials to road racing to flat track to motocross to hare scrambles to hare and hound. I mean, you name it, I covered it. So,
wow.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. Now, you see Mitch Bame has taken over the magazine in the last year or so, and I think he's done a credible job from not only having different themes and something for everybody, but he's also created a lot of content where it went from being sometimes wafer thin to actually being quite a stylistic magazine that I think people are looking forward to each month to read. What do you think, Mike?
I don't want to comment too much on my successor, one of the successors to my position, but no, I think the magazine has been good. Obviously it was hard leaving, so it's something I didn't want to look at it first for a little bit. I also really enjoyed the people who I worked with there, with Matthew Miles and Jim Witters. But there's been some good storytelling, I think. So I can't tell if I haven't done the page count to see if it is thicker or not. That's an interesting point. I'll have to go back to my archives and take a look at that and see, because I remember Roy and you telling me that it used to be about twice as thick as it was when I worked there. So
not anything on you. I know you did a credible job there, and you left to pursue other things, and I know you were well thought of down there. Now, as we look forward to 2022, you're going to continue your Johnny Cash, let's do it my way or highway thing, right?
Yeah, I've one of the trips I was going to go on, I think I'm going to have to scale back, but I'm still planning to hit about another 5 stops. I haven't been to New England before, so when I go to visit a friend of mine who lives in Albany, I'm going to head up to Bangor, Maine, and then circle back to where he lives in Albany, and then come back. So.
Oh yeah, Bangor.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, you doing this all on a Triumph? Oh, I'm sorry, on a Yamaha.
Yeah, my Yamaha FJR 1300 that I've had for a few years now. I think I got it in 18.
You know what? I'm not familiar with the Yamahas. I don't have a lot of mileage on my, but everywhere I go, I haven't seen any Yamahas on the road. You see the Harleys and everything else, the Indians and the Hondas and.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I can't tell you how many times with my very clearly badged Yamaha, people walk up to me and say, "Is that a BMW?"
BMWs too, yep.
BMW, K1200, K1300, but it looks like it's meant to be a competitor to the Beamer market, but it's been a very good bike for me. I think that's part of it, kind of blend. They're also not loud bikes. Most of the guys that own them don't put pipes on them, so you don't notice them as much. I still have the stock exhaust on mine, but I mean, it has given me just a relentless amount of bulletproof miles,
How many miles?
And before I had my 2008, which I have now, I had the 2003. That's what I got rear-ended by the Chevy Impala on. So,
oh, geez. How many miles you racked up on that bike now? Do you know?
Oh, let me think, because I bought the bike in 2018. 2018 with 12,800 miles, and when I entered the riding season this year, I had 49,000 on it. I believe.
49. Wow.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah, and I'm actually behind schedule. My goal is to get 500,000 miles before age 62, and then 500,000 after age 60.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
The last couple of years, I've actually been come up kind of short. Last year, I had a little bit of a back injury with my new the job I was working, the role I was working in before I was in my current role. So I only got 11,000 in, and the year before that with COVID, really restricting travel, I got about 7. Right. My max was 18,000.
Wow. Oh, jeez.
But that
Well,
was a couple of long trips that did that. So
Boy, that's a lot of goals to keep because that's a lot of miles on a bike. And
a lot of
talking to,
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of tires.
Yeah.
Is it a comfortable bike?
Oh yeah, it's for people who aren't familiar with the FJR 1300. It's like a light Goldwing. It handles a little bit better. It's a little bit lighter, but like my bike wet weight is probably 700 pounds. That doesn't include me stuffing the luggage full of.
Wow.
I live by a philosophy. One time when I was at Mid Ohio, I was shooting on one of the shooting photos, not like shooting skiing or anything, shooting photos on one of the photos. And I was standing next to a gentleman, and I said, I bring all these tools with me on a trip, and I don't really know if I need to. And his response to me was, well, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. And I looked at him, I was like, you just justified my Harbor Freight addiction. But outside of that, but I've kind of lived by that, and it's bailed me out a few times. I mean, I can tell some stories about times where having a tool with me that most people you don't need that. And sure enough, it came, in handy to help me nurse the bike home.
Yeah.
Just get over it, just get the bike home.
How you doing? Where's Beth,
That so Mike,
well, let me say this if I could. I belong and Roy belongs, and I'm not sure if Mike does, but there's an organization called the Iron Butt Association. And that organization is strictly for people that do long distance riding. Like long distance would be from here to the coast and back. That's one light segment that they would do. Or 1,500 miles in 24 hours called the Bun Burner Gold, stuff like that. But I
you got to be young to do that.
No, not really. What you have to do though, is you have to have a motorcycle that is purposely built. So you have that, and like Michael tell you, and Roy will tell you, you're going to have a seat that is custom fit for you. You're going to have your pegs, your bars, your mirrors, all situated for you. But the FJR 12 and 1300s have supplanted the BMWs in the serious iron butt competition. Like every other year, there is a 11-day challenge, and you're doing about 1,000 miles a day every day. You got to figure you're getting very little sleep. You finish one day, and you probably get 3 hours sleep, and now you got to start again. And
that's why I said you got to be young to do that one.
Yeah, and the FJR has been one of the most dominant but trouble-free motorcycles that is out there, and they've replaced pretty much on the winner's podium now the BMW motorcycles.
Wow, that's unbelievable, because I always think of I had a lot of friends that had classic BMW motorcycles, and those were it's like you sit there and drooled over those, and now it seems like the Yamahas are just coming in and a lot of the other bikes like that.
But there's nothing wrong with those. I have a 78 R100/7 old air-cooled BMW, but the problem is, even though that's 1,000 cc, I'm not going to hold 85 or 90. And there's some times that you're running the speed limit. There's other times that you've got to get from point A to point B, and you've only got a small window, either weather, time, gas, whatever, and you're not exactly doing the speed limit. So you have to have a motorcycle that is dependable and is rugged and also fits you. The other thing I can tell you is, when you start thinking about how many miles Michael has just put on, think about just the oil changes and the tires and the cost of something like that.
Yeah.
No, that's got to be every couple of weeks to do an oil change.
You would think.
Yeah.
Not quite, but well, sometimes that's not that far off, depending on how I stack my trip over the year. So.
Well, Daytona's 24 days away. I'm still waiting to hear from you, Michael, on that. But in closing out this segment with Michael, before we get to Fast Freddie, what are some of your other plans that you want to try and get accomplished, either professionally or personally, this year in the world of motorcycling?
Well, number one is get as many of the Johnny Cash stops in as I can and just kind of keep that project going. There's always something fun to report on that. Another group that I'm going to try to get more involved with this year it's a group called Skidmark Garage. I don't know how familiar you guys are with it, but
Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a community garage in Cleveland. I will be honest, I just did an interview with the founder of it for another publication, and I'd never been in their shop. They just moved shops about a month or 2 months ago. And their shop is the coolest thing I've seen in motorcycling this side of the Boardman Museum, hands down.
Okay.
I mean, it is really cool. So if you ever have a chance to get up there and just, learn more about it. It's a really neat concept.
Sound like a good guy to get on for one of our shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, any more questions for Mike until we can move on to Fast Freddie?
And we'll come back to you, Mike. So hang on.
Yep.
There's my guy.
Don't go anywhere because you're listening to the Street Scene Power Hour on on your favorite podcast networks that you've got. You can also watch it on YouTube. The Armstrong Neighborhood channel.
Facebook.
We have
Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout, iHeartRadio, any of your favorite platforms that you listen to. Now we're going to get to Fast Freddie, the legend of Mahoning Valley motorcycle voices, and Fast Freddie has been around forever in the motorcycling realm of this, as Larry has, but
what?
Yeah, you've been around quite a while, right, Larry?
I'm not quite as old as Larry. Come on now, don't add that I'm dealing with that kind of stuff right now. So Larry's a little older than me. Let's make that perfectly clear before we even go on.
Okay. Yeah, Larry's the oldest guy here, I have to say, right? That we won't get into that, right, Larry?
That's good. That's
Hold on,
good.
I got Roy standing by here somewhere. I'm going to get him over here in a minute. That way I won't be the oldest.
That's why he brings Roy along with us. So we have somebody that's a lot older than makes everybody feel a lot younger. So that's why Roy has to be in there. He's like the token old guy.
Rick.
You know how long of broadcast history we have here with Larry, Greg, Freddie, and myself? How much years we have in this? We got
to include Mike. We got to include Mike there because he's got a lot of broadcast history as well.
Sure. It's just it's amazing.
Okay, it's Larry, amazing. We got to stop here because you know what, Larry, how many broadcast years have you had right now, right off the top of your head?
1985.
1985.
Yeah.
That Rick, broadcast history. How many years of broadcasting?
Well, really broadcasting. I did 3 years in college, and I went to WKBN behind the scenes for 32 years. And then doing this for the past 13 years now.
Okay, add those up. For Fast Freddie, Fred, how many years of broadcasting? How many years have you done broadcasting in this in the Mahoning Valley?
40 plus.
There you go. Now I'm up. Okay, so I'm 40 plus. Larry, you've got
85 to 2021.
Okay, so 40 plus. Rick's got 30. I can't even.
32, 4.
Okay.
I'm about 30. I'm about 40 something too with all my.
All right, and I'm up to 30. So, and Mike, how many have you got?
Well, if we don't include my years at the AMA, but I've been on and off with Larry probably 4 or 5, something. I mean,
okay.
Larry started in broadcasting when I was 2 years old. So.
85.
Me too.
Yeah, right, Rick.
Rick. How about Mike's got the least amount of experience on the broadcasting, but he's probably got more miles than anybody. He's just racking up those miles like a crazy man.
Yeah. You
Good
believe that?
Mike.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, are you recording all this stuff? Like when you go somewhere, do you stand near the sign or something?
There is some of it. I do some of it on social media. Some of it's on my personal social media. I developed a blog called The Asphalt Life, which I'm trying to post to more. Just some of the trips I do in the places that I go. Some stories on there about like my first my second iron butt ride, the first one that actually counted. Long story, but anyway.
No, I was saying, like with that Johnny Cash song, like you can use the song and then put your video in there.
What I'm putting photos at each of the locations, and my dad prints them on shot glasses. So I'm eventually going to have a whole shot glass collection that you're almost going to be able to go through the entire song to.
When you're done, just fill them all up and
we'll come over. Yeah, some good scotch. Yeah, that's it.
Rick, you got questions for Fred?
Hey, Fred, now you're with Cumulus Radio. How's everything going over there for you?
You know what? Everything is going great. Everything is going. For a minute there, I got off to a rocky start because I got to tell you, after being off of work for like a year and a half, I really got used to the, the retirement life and not really wanting to do anything, I mean, the time I was off, even with COVID, I got a chance to do more fishing than I ever did in my life. I got a chance to try more than I really ever had a chance to do. And I really enjoyed day drinking and laying around in sweatpants, watching Show Network to keep my mind sharp, So it was actually, I really enjoyed being off. So like when I first come back, it was like, oh, I actually have to be somewhere, and, it'd be something as simple as, hey, don't forget to lock the door when you leave. And it was kind of like, man, what are these guys doing? My ass telling me what to do here,
It's a different world. Yeah.
That group, but no, things have been going really good here, and it's been really good. And we teamed up, since Lynn Davis retired, and we brought on Sandra Miller, who was at WONE, and she's just a phenomenal talent and a joy to work with. So we've been really, it's a new scene, and just getting back into it, and having her here, being a little younger and so enthusiastic and wanting to do things and everything. It's been a real blast so far. And things.
What station are you on, Fred?
Y103. I'm on
Y103.
Okay. From 3 to 7. And it's like I say, it's been a lot of fun so far. It really.
How's my buddy Bill Kelly treating you?
Bill is. I can't say enough good things. Well, especially since so I got to anyway. So no, I think Bill's more mellow than he was back in the day. I think he's more mellow. I think he's mellowed out a little bit. So
he was my boss for a while when I was in radio at WKBN. So he was a good boss for me. I never had any problem with him. So
I think we have a good crew, and that's one thing I would say about Cumulus Media is they still do focus on the local talent. We have AC and Kelly who have been around forever. We got Doug and Mary on K105, and Jeff Kelly, who worked with us on South Avenue, is on K105, and you got Shotgun Taylor, who's also based locally, and me and Sandra. So I mean, there is that commitment here to local radio and local programming, and I really am digging that. I really think it's been really nice.
So you started radio. You were in the radio the whole time, right?
Yes.
Okay. You started radio 40 years ago. What do you think of radio 40 years ago compared to radio now?
Wait, I got to sit back and listen to this one.
God. 40 years. I mean, I started. I graduated from Wilson High School in 1975, and I started at Kent State. And when I went to Kent State, I always just wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be in journalism. I thought that would be a good thing for me to do. And I started working at the radio station as soon as I got there, because, I think that was one of the good things about going to Kent State, because with this, you got to have hands-on experience. There's no substitute for that. And I was fortunate enough to get into it right from my very first quarter at college. And so I was working at the radio station as a news reporter, and I was working on the newspaper as a news reporter. And I would be around the radio station, and all of a sudden, I'd see these, the DJs were in their booth, and, they're playing music and they're talking to girls on the request line. And I'm kind of like, wow, and I've always been a music nut, and I never put two and two together until I got there. Nobody ever come up to me and said, hey, here's that you could make a living as being on the radio or broadcasting. I don't think people really knew to steer people into that direction, like, hey, something you like out. So anyways, I'm there and hanging out with the DJs. And then one night they says, hey, listen, we're doing a night out down at this bar on Water Street in Kent. Why don't you come on out? We could use a little help. So I go down to this bar, and the next thing you know, we're playing music and the girls are dancing, and the bar tab was, taken care of.
Oh, the best part.
And then revelation, I had this revelation. I was like, wait a minute, this is a job that you get before you come down.
It's a dream.
They take your bar tab, and the girls like you. And I was like, I never knew that this was an occupational path that you could take. And then, I got on it from there. And, I worked at the radio station and everything. And then the next thing I got hired at WNIO as a news reporter, and in 1979. And then in 1980, Dominic Barragona bought the radio station, and it was automated at the time. And Dominic turned it into a live country station. And he was such a promoter that we were like the biggest little radio station around. I mean, people knew WNIO. We were always out and about. And, we just had a big persona for being a daytime only radio station. And, then we hired Boots Bell on, of course. And, working with Boots for 10 years was a complete trip. That's a whole book.
The booter scooter.
Yeah.
The booter scooter. He was a character, let me tell you. His family's working on a documentary about Boots. And I think that they had talked to so many people and that they had so many stories about this guy that it's probably going to be a mini series by the time they got it done. But working on it. So then, I worked there with Dominic and Gary Z. And then in 1988, that's when we put on, CD 106. And we, built that from the ground up, from the construction permit, the everything, all the way from the ground up. And, it was like me and Dominic and Gary Z. And, then we hired on Casey Malone and Chris Patrick and Cornell Bogdan. And, we just kind of took the area by storm, because when we first come on, the Wizard had been gone for a long time and there was no real rock stations around. And then when we come on, it was just like, this is what we've been waiting for. And then from there on, it's just been, I've been there nonstop. I haven't, stopped since then, doing nights out since I started in 1975, being in bars on Friday night playing music. That has not changed here as we go into 2022. And what's crazy about that is the pay is still the same. It hasn't gone up since day one. It just continued. But so anyways, a lot of the changes that I've seen, I started when each and every radio station was locally owned and operated, which
was
I
started WKBN was Williamson's.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seemed like it was a little more competitive too. Because if you thought you could come up with a better format or better disc jockeys or a better contest to knock these other guys off, you would be able to just go out there and do it. And the only person you really have to answer to was the guy that owned the radio station right there, and that was it. It was. And so what you had instead of now, you have these groups where everybody tries to be, in this little lane and this little lane. I mean, it would be like if you thought that I look back way in the day, if WFMJ thought that they could knock off WHOT, they would go out and mix their music a certain way and get the DJs to present things in a certain way. And that was like a big thing. I think it was so much more competitive against the other stations, where I don't think you have that, you still have the competition, but it's in a different way. And Larry would know that too, on how they stack up the stations. And we're going to put this because we're going to go after this with this station. We're going to go after this with this station. We're going to go after that with that station, and nobody's going to cross over. Where if you look and said, you know what, I think we could knock those guys off with a better format or with a better station, we're going to come after them. But you don't see that kind of stuff. And so, and the fact that every station was completely locally programmed and everything like that, and that's one of the biggest changes that's come. And I mean, I was lucky enough to even be in at the final days of when radio was totally free form, where the DJs had all the power to select their music, where you would pick your music and it would reflect your personality. And you could turn people on to a new song. Now you really try to keep things familiar. And the reason behind that is, there's a couple reasons, the way they take the ratings in the big markets now with what they call a PPM, they can track every move that everybody does every minute. So
through the computers,
it's more of a scientific research driven thing than with your heart and with your gut. And I would say the biggest thing for that is because of the way they take the ratings, and they could monitor every person that's listening for every minute. So they might see a song that they could look at all their data and go, man, every time we play this song on a radio, people are pushing the button. Or every time we have this guest on this radio, people are pushing the button, where, it's got to that point where it's you got to really be tight to work within that framework,
Exactly.
where before, if people were just, the way they do the ratings would be like, you would write down in a book, okay, I listened to Y103 today from 3 to 7 or something, or people would go home and they would just write it in. So now once they started this PPM, it got in real time what people are listening to, and it makes it a lot tougher, they could actually see. So, I mean, I know even like some of the, bigger morning shows, national morning shows and stuff like that. I mean, they got rid of a lot of guests and a lot of different people that were regulars on their show, because when they would come on, they would have this data instantly in front of them, like, holy shit, everybody tuned out at this point.
Yep.
So, that's one of the biggest things that, but you know what, and I hate to use this term because I think it's so cliche, but it is what it is. Everything changes, nothing stays the same. You
have to change.
Yeah.
And
now, Fred, if
you tell me anything that's anything the way that it used to be. There's not a whole lot anymore. You can lament for the good old days, and I do believe they were the good old days, but we're living in the here and now, and you got to play the game the way they play it. So
you know what, Freddie, one thing I learned being in broadcasting, if you don't change, you lose.
Yeah.
You're going to be knocked out. It's always, every year we change. I did something. Yeah.
You can always fight change, but it's not going to get you anywhere. You've just got to adapt.
Yeah.
You got to adapt.
And Freddie's right. Every radio group had their own identity. I mean, you actually embraced the on-air personalities. They were gods. Like, and you can remember going to the Record Rendezvous, man, when they talk about this new 45, they're just spinning, and they'd be like, hey, daddy-o, and you go down there. Or if there's a band, you'd stand in line for hours waiting. Or it'd be Saturday night at the Cove at Idora Park. I mean, the big sock hops. I mean, it was the best of the best. I mean, as a teenager, living in Poland, 1330 was the station we all listened to, but because it was called a DA2, so at night it had a different direction, so you could barely hear it. But boy, you turn that transistor radio on, and you'd want to hear Super Dick, The Weather Slick, or Smoochie Kazi, or Boots Bell, or all the great ones, and you'd just be riveted by it. You'd be doing your homework, but you weren't, because you're listening to. And then they used to have the top 40 things, and they'd print these things out, and you could win stuff. And it was just, I think it was truly the heyday of radio, as it allowed the individuals to bond with the individual on the radio station. Now, you may call in now and request a song, but that person could be 1,000, 2,000 miles away. But with the technology, it sounds like that person's right then there.
Yeah.
So, that soul is still missing, because I mean, especially for what we're doing now. And I mean, that's our whole thing. We are Youngstown's radio station, and we're still bringing that feel, because if you listen for a while, I think people know what's canned and what's not, and they know what's real and what's not. And I think you've seen that, as by our success that we have had here, and you can't replace it. I mean, when you look back at that, and the things that we used to do, and we'll look at, like, WHOT, because I was really good friends with Boots, and I'm friends with his family, and I've always been on a mission to kind of keep those guys' memories alive, and in the days of WHOT and those days of radio, which really were, like Larry said, those were the golden days. And I mean, your local radio station was everything. A guy like Boots Bell, when he would show up to your school for a donkey,
man. That's right.
Yeah.
and then they'd be out there and they'd play your coach basketball, or you'd have a softball game against their all-stars, and it was all that stuff that was a part of the community. And another that the WHOT, especially, and Boots and Dick Thompson, they were huge supporters of the local music scene. I mean, a band like Left End could walk in the WHOT with a 45 and walk right in the studio, and Boots or any of those guys, Johnny K, would throw it right on the turntable without even listening to it, and say, "All right, kids, here we go. Left End, Dennis T. Menace is in the studio with me right now." And they just the studio, and I'm gonna lay a platter on you that
that'd be dangerous to do nowadays.
Call up and let us know if you dig it. And they would play that song from Left End and have the guys talk about it. They might play it 3 times in a row. Hey, you know what? I liked it so much, I'm going to play it again. And you would have this stuff. And then they would have Hot Day at Idora Park, and all the bands would play. And they always created the scene. They were all a part of the scene. And I think that's one thing that's missing that with radio stations now. And then, what though, it's also, people have changed, habits have changed, people don't go out like they did. But I still try to maintain that to this day, is we're a part of the scene, and back then, though, the scene was really just massive and everybody was in on it. And if you look at that and you see what the power of radio and the magic of radio was about. And you know what? I really believe that that's still there if they let you unleash it. There's still something about it.
How about talk radio, Freddie? What do you think about talk radio? It's huge. It's huge right now.
The spoken word.
Yeah.
For conservatives, I mean, it's like it's their thing.
I remember getting into talk radio with Dan Ryan. I was producing his show. Okay, back in the 80s. And he come in there and he had a heck of an audience. He had a heck of an audience, and he had a good.
Yeah, that's another thing. You want to talk about the competition and stuff, and Pete Gabriel was another guy that really.
I produced his show too.
Fun of radio, the local thing. I mean, Pete was, he was. He really got it. And that's a prime example of what I was talking about earlier. Okay, they decided, all right, we're going to go talk on 570, and Dan Ryan was on WBBW, and they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go out and get their top guy.
And they got him.
Pound on him, and they would do that. But now that doesn't happen. It does before, and that was another thing where, okay, these guys own this station, and here's what they're going to do. We're going to get your top guy, and we're going to turn it around, and we're going to beat you. And they did to this day. I mean, for what Pete Gabriel did and established that with Dan Ryan on 570.
And he got Ron Verb in there also.
Yep. Well.
Oh, yeah.
I got.
Well, Freddie, if you think about it, if Dan Ryan or Ron Verb is modern day Dan Ryan, I'll tell you how popular they are. And here's your own people meter. As a salesperson, if I've got a client and Ron's pitching widgets, people go buy the widgets. And then, you know what? You don't need a ratings book to see that. That's the most important thing, is the cash registers ringing. And, you look at Pete Gabriel and you talk about ingratiating yourself to the community. Who could do St. Patrick's Day better than Pete Gabriel? He was the MC of the whole thing.
He started it. Yeah. He's the one who started it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And sadly, Pete's gone. Dan's gone now. Dick's gone.
Let me interrupt real quick.
That's just stuff that you can't do if your shows are piped in and recorded somewhere else in a different city a week ago. You just do it. And I think when you bring that stuff to the forefront where you can, you know, people still are endeared to that, and it's still a part of the thing, you know. And that's why, you know, since I've been over here, you know, we've been doing a lot of that stuff. We're going to be at the parade, you know, we're still out at concerts, we're doing this, we're doing that, you know. We do it that old school way, and that's what, you know, it's your local radio station. But you know, when they first issued licenses to radio stations, that was the whole thing. You were supposed to serve your local community, and then slowly but surely that eroded away. But I mean, if you were WNIO, you were licensed to Niles, Ohio, and you were the Niles station. And even back in the day, old timers used to call it that. They used to call it Salem. What do you listen to? I'm listening to Salem today. What do you I listen to Niles. I listen to Warren. I heard that guy on the Warren outfit the other day.
Well,
you know?
I will say this though, and as we both were iHeart employees for many, many years, but I'm still real pleased with the effort that Dan and Ron and Mike Craig and those guys put on 570. You know, Gary Rivers, Pound's Morning Drive on Mix 98.9, and then of course Brian Price handles the NCD duties. And yeah, I think everybody'd like to see 6 guys on every radio station anymore, but the economy of scale and stuff like that, sometimes you can get like a Ryan Seacrest where anybody couldn't afford a Ryan Seacrest as a standalone DJ, but through the economy of scale and being able to put Ryan on maybe many stations, now it becomes much more affordable. So Youngstown can deliver a top quality DJ like Ryan, you know. But I'm very fortunate to have worked with Fred, to have worked with Christy, to work with so many of the great people, and including Dan Rivers, Ronnie Verb, you know, Mike Craig in the morning, and you look at Gary Rivers and then Brian Price. So I've been very fortunate to have, along as Freddie too, some great memories of my tenure at iHeart and the good folks that are still there.
Yep. Well, let me interrupt real quick. I just wanted to say that you know, it's kind of broadcasting, whether you're TV or radio, it's a family, and you got your core group. I mean, that's what it is. Right. We still have our core group. The second thing is, you know, you go, you know, Fred, the motorcycle scene. I want to get back in that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, actually, you know, quite by accident. I started riding a little later in life, which kind of bums me out because I think I missed out on a lot.
You did, yeah.
You know, I really did. I got started a little later, but you know, a couple of reasons why I got started a little later is, first of all, I work so much, you know. I mean, I got gigs and stuff so much, you know, that it's just crazy. My schedule has always been nuts. But I got started with you know, doing bike nights, hosting bike nights, and you know, that's really the crowd that I fell into because I had the right attitude, you know, to entertain the motorcycle crowd. And, you know, from there, you know, I started doing, you know, the lubes and the ice house and, you know, everywhere. And, you know, then I started doing, you know, different, you know, different parties for different clubs and stuff like that. So I got into it through that. And it got to the point where, like, dude, if you're going to keep doing this and you don't have a motorcycle, what the hell's wrong with you? You know? Also, when I started late too, because I had 3 kids and my family was worried about me riding, you know, and also you know, I was a very heavy drinker at the time, so that didn't really quite mix with that, you know. And but now that I've really gotten into it, I'm really kicking myself that I didn't get into it sooner, because to me it is just such you know, I mean, I'm hook, line, and sinker. Once I started, and then that was it. You know, I started like a lot of people. You know, I started with a, you know, a little Honda 750, and then I moved up to a Vulcan 1500. You know, and then a
which we pushed into the pickup truck in Daytona. Remember on that hill, on that ramp in the where we were staying. Oh, thank God.